This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. A county attorney in Wyoming says there were no signs of election violations against Native voters in the 2018 election. As Wyoming Public Radio's Melody Edwards reports, the state's Democratic Party requested the attorney conduct an investigation after complaints from Native voters.
County Attorney Patrick LeBrun says he did find that the county clerk employees were confused about where tribal members could register and whether they could use their tribal ID. But he says this confusion didn't deter people from voting. In a second situation, LeBrun looked into the validity of a polling judge requiring voters to recite an oath.
She wanted to make sure that when somebody registered to vote, they understood that they couldn't be a felon. That was her reason. It's not how she was trained, but that's what she did.
LeBrun says the judge was a tribal member who knew many of the voters, and they had never complained about being asked to recite an oath before. He says the judge was not conducting a literacy test, as had been alleged.
Now, had that happened, boy, oh boy, that would be a serious problem. That would be a clear violation of Wyoming law. It would definitely be a civil rights violation. No one was denied the privilege of voting if they couldn't read.
Wyoming Democratic Party Chairman Joe Barbuto says the attorney's report only confirms to him that a problem still exists.
There's confusion about what sort of IDs are required in order to register to vote. We have election judges who are putting into place their own policies and procedures, and we can't have those kind of things happen. So we still have a lot of work.
Barbuto says going forward, there's a need for more education for poll workers on Wyoming election policies. Skylar Dixie with the Wind River Native Advocacy Center agrees. He says more issues are likely to arise in the future because more people are turning out to vote.
There's a lot more people involved. I've seen the community get involved. I've seen the youth start getting involved a lot more. That's a good thing.
For National Native News, I'm Melody Edwards.
A Navajo man has announced he's running for U.S. president, joining more than 24 other candidates so far in the 2020 race. Arizona Public Radio's Ryan Heinches has more.
Mark Charles is running as an independent and announced his campaign last week. He says he's not aware of any other members of the Navajo Nation who've run for U.S. president. Charles was raised in Gallup, New Mexico, and is the former pastor of the Christian Indian Center in Denver. He's lived in Washington, D.C. with his family for 4 years, working as a public speaker and writer focused on U.S. history and social justice issues. He says as a presidential candidate, his focus will be on historic wrongs committed against the country's indigenous community, women, and people of color.
The United States of America needs a national dialogue on race, gender, and class. Because we don't deal with that history, because we don't acknowledge what our foundations were, we now don't know how to solve the problems we have today.
Charles will hold a campaign kickoff event later this month on the Navajo Nation. From there, he says he'll travel to other U.S. states with high indigenous populations to rally support. Charles has never held elected office, and this is his first political campaign. For National Native News, I'm Ryan Heinches in Flagstaff.
Arizona tribes are urging U.S. lawmakers to protect land around the Grand Canyon from new mining. Tribal leaders and conservation groups joined Democratic U.S. lawmakers Tuesday in Washington to support the Grand Canyon Centennial Protection Act. The bill establishes a permanent moratorium on new mining claims around the Grand Canyon. Tribal leaders say a legacy of mining has already impacted the environment and burial and sacred sites. Leaders are testifying on the bill Wednesday in a House subcommittee hearing. I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Trickster Gallery and American Indian Veterans welcome all veterans to reconnect in unity. The 5th Annual National Gathering of American Indian Veterans at Cantigny Park, Wheaton, Illinois, July 26th to 28th. TricksterGallery.com supports this show.
My day one.
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 Day one. Telling inspiring stories of alcohol recovery. Recovery works. Hope starts here. Go to recoveralaska.org to learn more.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.